everybody. Welcome to the Energy News Beat Daily Stand-Up. This is the weekly recap. It has been an absolute crazy week on the news deck. I mean, we have just had so much fun. We're so grateful for all of our listeners. The staff is putting together all of our top stories for the week. We've had everything from Exxon dropping more oil. They're putting out 28 to $33 billion more. We've had all the other stories in there. I'm interviewing some folks. I was on Ann Vandersteel's show on her show on Monday. That was phenomenal. I'm interviewing about 4 or 5 other new folks coming around the corner. So buckle up, listen, and I'm going to turn this over to the staff. Have a great day. EV slumps, a global reality check. Global EV sales are slowing down due to high prices, concerns about charging infrastructure, and reduced government subsidies. Fiscal responsibility is finally starting to show up just as President Trump is taking office, and I have to give President Trump a shout out for being in Notre Dame and absolutely representing the United States as a president should. It is like Papa has come home and the adults are paying attention. Everybody wanted to talk to President Trump, and they are happy to see him. I couldn't be happier. And car makers have scaled back production plans, with U.S. EV output expected by 50% and European gas plants by 29% next year. EV market share is expected to reach 23% in Europe and 13% in the US. I tell you what, Ford has just come up and they're standing up to the EU and they're saying, we're not going to change, we're not going to match or meet your requirements because your requirements are crippling us. So hats off to Ford, and I'm hopeful that Ford will do the same thing. They're not going to have to do that in the U.S. because the EV mandates are going to change in the U.S. If you want an EV, by all means, let's let you have an EV. I recommend Tesla. I'm trying to save up for a Cybertruck. Want a Cybertruck, but because of the trailers that I tow around on the land, I got everything I need. I want to have a Ford 250 or 350. I want to have a Cybertruck. I'm all off and running between that. Now, if we ever get to the point where I only need one, I'll be okay with that. But in the meantime, I'm going to need 2. Revolutionary Mercedes-Benz solar paint could mean Australians could never have to plug in their EVs again. This is actually very, very cool. First experimented on the 2022 Vision EQXX concept, the German's brand scientists initially thought tech had limited scope for mass production until the experiments were carried out with prototypes coated with paint in real-world scenario. I think this is actually very cool. The number equates to 60% of the average daily commute or free energy. This is exciting from the standpoint that, yay, the whole car becomes a solar absorbing charging station. Here's where I got a rut-row. Is this really going to work? Because if it is that expensive and you walk by and you go, oops, and you thump the car and you scratch it, does it ruin the charging capability by X number percent? And you all have had cars out there that fade over time. How expensive is that paint job over time? Is it going to last 10 years? And is it going to degrade by thumping? Holy smokes. Could you imagine losing your ability to even charge your car in a hailstorm? West Texas, man, that's a tough thing to do. So very, very good. I love energy technology, and I think that's a very, very good possibility out there. Stop the green, just plan to close all 200 coal power plants. Coal is the world's most abundant and reliable energy source. The United States has the world's largest coal reserves of 15 major coal producing states. Montana has the largest coal reserve with 114 billion tons. There are 200 coal plant burning power plants in the United States, with many concentrated in Pennsylvania, Texas, Indiana, and the Powder River Basin of Wyoming and Montana. And I'll tell you what, there's over 2,400 coal-fired power plants, and on the other 92% Of those, they're being done in China. Right now, China has 1,142 operating coal power fire plants and is now building 6 times as many coal power plants as the rest of the world combined. This story is from Ronald Stein. He is a good friend of the show, and George Harris. Ronald Stein is a really cool guy. He's got a great book. Love his material. And here's a couple great points in here. Given that China is also currently leading the world in construction of renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, China's increased reliance on coal contradicts the justifications offered by the CCP. This is absolutely horrific. The United States is buying all of this equipment that is fiscally irresponsible from the day it is set up. It is never going to meet net zero. A wind farm is fiscally irresponsible. I have been saying this for years. The more money we invest in renewable energy, the more fossil fuels we will use. And again, this is just another example of that. Shout out to Ronald Stein, great author. I recommend you follow him, and his newsletter is in the show notes. Is also from the Energy Realities team. This one, though, was written and it was out on, let's see here, Zero Hedge and Tyler Durden, and he is a cool cat. I'll tell you what, democracy is dead. A coup against the right wing movement is underway in Europe. I really enjoyed the conversation today with the Energy Realities on the Monday Morning Podcast. In Germany, the establishment is attempting to ban the reality of successful AfD party on the grounds they represent a return to fascism. Over 100 legislators backed the resolution. Here's what we're seeing. Around the world, the left has absorbed up into the climate and energy fallacy of green energy, and then the far right is supporting that, like the rhinos in the United States. We need to now have a worldwide awakening of people saying we want low cost, we just want to live our lives. We want to make sure that we can have our kids and raise our food and not be killed or anything else. So let's all try to get down that road. This article from Zero Hedge is absolutely wonderful. The elites are also attempting to use lawfare against Le Pen, conjuring charges of the misuse of EU funds. Lawfare is another form of them just trying to wipe out any conservatives. What we're seeing a rise of the death of the rhinos in the United States. I, for one, am tired of any politician that is not America first. If you're a rhino, you need to be primaried. If you are a candidate wanting to go ahead and go out and challenge the rhinos, please contact me. I'm looking forward to interview anyone that is primarying out the senators that are not America first. I want to help support that in any way possible. USC's small global oil deficit in 2025, oil outlook reversal. This story was on Bloomberg. And I really like this from the standpoint the downward revisions from come after OPEC and its allies deferred supply increases for 3 months, which the EIA expects will tighten the market. Investors are closely watching balances for next year as weak demand and rising production outside of OPEC keep oil futures range bound. I tell you what, I follow Josh Young on X. He is one cool cat. He knows what's going on out there. And he put out on an X post, if U.S. inventories are declining, couldn't the oil just be used floating off or storage abroad? His answer was it could, but here's what the EIA shows for global petroleum inventories, including oil on water, and it's showing that it's down. NIS is also I'm a huge fan of NIS. Both of these accounts are listed in this article, so you'll want to follow them. And you take a look at the gas imports and gas exports. A beautiful chart there when you see the who's importing what and how. Highly recommend follow both of them. But President Trump put out on Truth Social, any person or company investing in $1 billion or more in the United States of America will fully receive expedited approvals and permits, including but no way limited to environmental approvals. Get ready to rock. President Trump is on to something here, and here's where we're going to need the energy new secretary, Chris Wright. We're going to need Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary of the Interior. We're going to need Lee Zeldin, all hands on deck. This is important because we're going to have all three of these guys working together, and we are about to blow the United States energy through the roof. We're going to have the lowest kilowatt per hour in the United States to attract the manufacturing that we need to have here. And I believe those three gentlemen are the team that can get that done. So you have President Trump over here saying, wait a minute, I want to attract businesses to the United States. Here's the three key guys that can help get what President Trump just put out there done. I hope everybody's listening. And by the way, I'd love to still have all three of you on my podcast. I've had Chris Wright. It went bonkers. Again, thank you for your time. President Trump, eventually, I would love to interview you as well. And also, Doug Burkham, love to visit with you. And Lee Zeldin, you're a rock star. I've loved all of your episodes on the Gutfeld show. Thank you very much. GM shuts down its, I don't want to mispronounce this one, Misbegotten Robotaxi money pit after acquiring Cruise in 2016 and then blowing $10 billion. I have said this before. Tesla and Elon will be a survivor in the EV space. And I guarantee you, Elon's knocking it out of the park. His automation is there. This is another reason why GM, Ford, and all the others need to get out. Here's my message to GM and Ford. Work on a hybrid model. There is a need for the flyover states. I would buy a hybrid as a second car. Right now, I'm going to be buying a Ford 250. I've got too much land work to do. I need to haul stuff. A Cybertruck just doesn't have the range that I need. I would love to have a Cybertruck. That's going to be probably my fourth or fifth car that I buy to use just because I want a Cybertruck. General Motors announced Tuesday afternoon after blowing $10 billion on its Robotaxi startup, no longer fund Cruise, bring ownership out of the 97 to 97 via agreements and shareholders, acquire the remaining shares, and shut down the Robotaxi operation. Fold Cruise's technical team into its own autonomous assisted driving effort for personal vehicles, which includes the hands-off, eyes-on driving feature now available on 24 GM models. Elon got him again. He's out developing it and doing great. Last month, under the fist of GM, then Cruise admitted the allegations of the DOJ, accepted the criminal charges brought against it by the DOJ, and settled. Holy smokes. Cruise halted operations after the permit in San Francisco was operating in Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, and Miami. In November of 23, it issued a recall to its 950 robo-taxis and laid off a portion of its 4,000 employees. Among other house cleaning items GM did at Cruise at that time. I'm sorry, I get tickled at this. This is all about, no. Anyway, how do you waste $10 billion and be responsible to your shareholders? Oil and gas executives have heard the ESG mandate of investors over the last 5-6 years. They are giving back their money very hugely. When you sit back and also take a look at Exxon to increase oil production by 18% in 2030. So we've got oil and gas executives are giving their money back to their shareholders. They have heard this loud and clear. And you take a look, it's unveiled in ExxonMobil has unveiled to increase spending by 28 to 33% billion annually. That's amazing. When you sit back and take a look, they are going to keep on going doing what they're doing. Now, if you're a friend of the show and you've listened to this podcast, Michael and I have talked about this on the past, and that is the difference between the US operators, exploration and production units. They went ahead and they went through and they stayed the course. Occidental in the exploration space, Occidental did a combination of carbon capture, looking after getting the government money and looking at going that way. That was a fairly good one, but when the money runs out, Occidental is going to be in a little bit of a financial pickle when the money for the subsidies on carbon capture don't come in. So you take a look at Exxon, Chevron, and all of the 50% of the oil in the United States is made from private companies. Those companies are giving money back as a good lion's share of it to the investors and stakeholders.